gives you the life, and it also says in the scriptures, he takes it back.
Yes, and in fact, it says that this ruach, which can be translated wind, we also translate it spirit, which makes it sound mystical, breath, but it says that the wind in us goes back to God, who gave it. He takes it back. He just reverses it. Instead of going, he goes, and it sucks out of us. And we just collapse because we no longer are able to animate. Then we take what's left, now this corpse, this clay, and that we put back into the ground. This is the Hebraic understanding. So you go to, in their understanding, there is not the concept of what we would call hell. Okay, that's a concept that comes into play in the intertestamental literature, and then on into the apostolic text, where you have this idea of a lake of fire. Actually, the text says lake of fire. Okay, but Sheol is paralleled over and over again with pit, with grave, and the idea of death. And so they went down to their death. The ground opens up, and they go down to Sheol. And Sheol is, in the Semitic mind, this place of the departed dead. It's a place where everyone goes who dies. Yes?
In the case of the rich man and Lazarus, the rich man, he died, he opened his eyes in the flame. Lazarus went into Abraham's bosom.
Right.
Sheol could be related to Abraham's bosom.
Sheol may be Abraham's bosom, although it's interesting. We have this concept of Abraham's bosom, and what's interesting is we don't get any part of that until we get to the intertestamental literature, which is why the apostolic text picks up on it. Okay, and that's the only one we have. The only text we have that really gives us any kind of discussion, if you want to call it that, on this concept of afterlife and what the afterlife entails. I will say this. This is just my thoughts. I understand why we do it. Don't get me wrong on this. I understand why we do it. But we will say things. I've heard things at memorial services or at funerals that are a little bit bothersome. And I know we're doing it to give people comfort, but we'll say things like, Mom is walking on streets of gold. Well, the only problem with that is the streets of gold are the New Jerusalem that comes out of heaven, which hasn't come down yet. Okay? So, or we'll say things like, well, Mom is sitting by the throne of God. Again, sounds nice, comforting, okay. But as I look at the throne of God in the heavenly realm, it's surrounded by a lot of people, like angels. So, the idea that Mom just walks up and sits right up by the throne, not likely. But I get the idea. I get the comfort aspect of it. Okay. Theologically, not too astute, but the point well taken. All right.
Well, I take like the afterlife to me, like when I die, we're on a linear plane, like we can only see like from one place to another where time is linear, but God is outside time and space, so why wouldn't it be like if I'm dead, why aren't I just transported to the end of times or to heaven on earth and all that stuff? I mean, how would I know because I'm dead? It's like when I'm asleep and I sleep all night and I wake up and it's morning and whoa, and I don't know how long I've been asleep or whatever.
Right.
So
and it's interesting you say that because one of the metaphors in Hebrew scripture for death is sleep.
Right. Well, Daniel 12:12 says, "Many of us who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake,
right,
these to everlasting life, but others to disgrace and everlasting contempt."
Right. And in fact, we have a place in the Gospels where Yeshua says, regarding, I think it's Lazarus, maybe Lazarus, he says, they're asleep. And then the disciples say to him, well, then why do we need to go? And he goes, no, he's dead. So sleep could be this metaphor for death, because when a person sleeps, time passes, the body is still, and it looks respiration lowers. So
well, isn't that why he purposely waited waited longer than the 3 days to go get him and wake him up because, that was like a minimum amount of time before you could, that you knew that somebody was actually dead and not just like.
Yeah, in that time period, that's a theory that it took 4 days for the spirit to leave the body. Yeah, so that's a working theory, maybe so. So might be why delays.
It's already
But,
starting to decay.
Huh?
It's already starting.
They've already started to decay. Yeah, so, I mean, think about this just for a moment. Think about this just for a moment. Here we are in chapter 16 and 17, and you have, throughout the book of Numbers, just mass amount of rebellion. The people are, we want to go back to Egypt. Okay, we want to go back to Egypt. Let's give us a leader and let's go back. Because Moses has led us out here to die. And Aaron, well, he's a problem. We need a new priesthood, we need a new leader. And let's get us some new leaders and let's just go back to Egypt. Had they so forgotten what was in Egypt, that in Egypt they had no time to themselves, that this slave mentality was such that they couldn't deal with their freedom. They didn't know what to do with it. And then you begin to exaggerate how things were in the past. You quickly forget.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Court referred to it, take us back to Egypt, a land flowing with milk and honey.
Right.
It was like, are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah, they start calling Egypt the land that's flowing with milk and honey. Egypt wasn't a land flowing with milk and honey. And oh, by the way, guys, the reason that you're not going to go into the land, the reason that you're not going to be able to, this generation is not going in, is because when we brought you to the precipice of going in, you had fear and you turned back.
You disbelieved.
You disbelieved. And had you listened to what Joshua and Caleb said, had you actually listened to them, you could have gone in and you could have conquered this, and you'd already be in the land. Instead, nobody's going in but Joshua and Caleb. Moses and Aaron aren't going in, and neither is Miriam. None of the three leaders of the family of Moses, Aaron, or Miriam, are going to go in. We're going to get to that in a couple of weeks, why they don't go in. And Moses actually comes back to God later on and says, "Are you sure I can't go in? Are you sure I can't go in?"
You see it.
And he says, I'll take you up to the mountain and I'll let you look at it over the top of the mountain. But here's the really cool thing. And you have to read this in Deuteronomy. We're getting to that. But the really cool thing is, God takes Moses up to the mountain. So Moses look over there, and it says that Moses was not diminished. He didn't die because his health was failing. God just says, Moses, it's time. Okay? That had nothing to do with his health. He wants us to know that. It wasn't because Moses was chronically sick or had some kind of disease or anything like that. Moses is not on his deathbed. God just takes him up there and says, Moses, it's time for you to go. And then it says that God buried him. That's the coolest thing. I get this idea of God with a shovel up there, right? I don't know what this looks like. But, I mean, seriously, that's what the text says. It says he buried him. This is what you do for a friend. This is what another friend does for a friend.
And he was with him when he passed away.
And he was with him when he passed away. He's with his friend when he dies. And the Holy One, blessed be he, digs a grave and buries his friend. And it says that no one knows where this grave site is. Because you had to know that if somebody knew where it was, they would venerate the place and people would be going there to worship it. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want that. I mean, you see this today in Israel.
Every tomb.
Every tomb of every famous rabbi is marked out with a nice big headstone. And some of these were wonderful people, don't get me wrong, but people go there to venerate their memory. I mean, in Tiberias, here's a classic example. Tiberias had many, many famous rabbis buried there. After the post-70 destruction of the temple, many famous rabbis were buried in Tiberias. So all over Tiberias, there's these headstones and these places you can go to visit the gravesite of famous rabbis. Some very godly individuals, no doubt. But you can imagine if people would have known where Moses was buried, they would have gone there and wanted to lay flowers and come there as a pilgrimage. And God says, no, look, I'm going to bury Moses. This is my friend. Yeah.
So I'm always curious about that phrase in Jude, when the angel Michael was arguing with Hasatan over the body of Moses.
Yeah.
What do you suppose that's about?
That's an interesting text because that also goes to intertestamental literature. In the book of Enoch, I believe it is, they have a discussion where Michael tries to. I need to go back and look at that, but it's there is this interesting interplay there in the intertestamental literature that plays into this text of Jude.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
which is it's fascinating. It's fascinating material.
What about when Yeshua is shown in his glory and he's standing next to Moshe and Elijah?
Yeah,
That's resurrection.
Yeah.
that's resurrection.
And they're standing there like, I mean, they can see him. It's like, hey, these two guys are here, like they never died,
Yeah, we have some fascinating texts. And here's the one that Yeshua uses. Let's go back to what we talked about fire. Yeshua mentions the burning bush. We'll end with this. But look at Exodus chapter 6. Yeah, Exodus chapter 6. This is not a text that I would have used. I would not have thought to use this text with regards to resurrection. Excuse me, I apologize, Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3, burning bush. I would not have thought to use this text, but Yeshua does when he's asked about resurrection. Look at verse 5. Exodus chapter 3, verse 5. Then he said, do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet. The place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, anybody knows if you've just read Genesis, we're in the chapter 3 of Exodus. We've come through Genesis, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob have died. Towards the end of Genesis, Jacob has passed away. And yet Yeshua says to the Zadakim, he says, I am the God of the living, not the God of the dead. Did you not hear what I said? That I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're alive. So, fascinating stuff. All right, any questions or comments?
The other favor that God did for Moses, he didn't have to put up with those stiff-necked people anymore.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Moses says in chapter 12, I'm the most miserable person in the world. I mean, every time this people turns around, Moses, we're hungry. Moses, we're thirsty. Moses. It's like, just complaining. Kvetch. It's like, they come to Moses. Moses, we need water. Moses, we need food. And every time God provided.
Now we're tired of the food you gave us.
Now we're tired of the food you gave us. We don't want manna. We want quail. We want this. We want that. And so here you have in chapter 16 and 17 now an attack on Aaron. They want to democratize the priesthood. And God had said, No, the priesthood belongs to the Aaronite family. Now, this goes to something that is important for Messianic Judaism. The responsibility of educating the people was on the Levites, and more specifically the family of Aaron and then the Kohanim, not on the rabbis. Now, it's great to have rabbis, it's great to have people who teach and all that, but Judaism at large has come to rely heavily just on the rabbis. Now, part of that is because the Levites abdicated their role. So the vacuum was filled by the sages, by these rabbis. But really, the ultimate responsibility for educating the people in the text is those who are of the Levitical clan.
Slightly different subject, but could you unpack just a little bit more about how they're related? Because that's really interesting to me, the fact that this could almost be like an internal family dispute.
It is
It's a lot different if you don't know someone that's coming up against you versus like your own family coming against you saying, we're tired of you, or so. Can you just unpack that?
Sure. Go back to, in order to do that, let's go back to Exodus 6 for a moment. Exodus chapter 6, so you understand the relationship of this. So look at verse 16, Exodus chapter 6, verse 16. It says, these are the names of the sons of Levi, according to their generations: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Okay, and the years of the life of Levi were 137. The sons of Gershon were Livni and Shimi, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath were Amram, Iskar, Hebron, and Uziel. Now, the sons of Kohath, Amram is the family out of which Moses, Aaron, and Miriam are going to come. Iskar is the family out of which the Korah is going to come. So you have Levi, then you have Gershon, Kohath, Merari. From Kohath, you're going to have Iskar, Hebron, Uziel, and Amram. They're all, so actually they're in the same, they're brothers. The Kohathites are brothers along with Amram. So they're cousins. First cousins.
So Moses
And Korah are first cousins.
like far down removed?
No. No, they're right, they're very close. So Korah's like, hey, I mean, how do you and Aaron get to be, so special? How come you guys get to lead the priesthood? Are we all holy on one level? Yes, but Aaron had been set aside. So you have Amram, then Aaron, Miriam, and Moses. Amram's brother was Iskar, and Iskar has Kohath. Okay, so Iskar and Amram are brothers, so Moses and Korah are cousins, first cousins.
So it's Uncle Izzy.
Yeah, I know your father. I know your father, you know my father. So we're very close. This is why when Korah comes, this is an internal family thing, saying, hey, look, we're the same family. Your father and my father are brothers. We grew up together. We're all holy. But God had said, no, this particular family from the Aaronites would be the ones who would lead the priesthood. Now, all these other groups, the Kohathites, all these other groups, they get to take care of the tabernacle physical aspects. Okay. So they get an important job. Very important job. The Kohathites are responsible for the internal, the table of showbread, the menorah, the altar of incense. I mean, they have some serious responsibilities and serious duties.
There's also the singers.
Yeah, later on, the sons of Korah become the singers in the temple. So they're very, very. Not all the descendants were killed. Yes.
I guess one thing that just makes me think of real fast is, I know that God in the Bible, God is not like an angry, vindictive God to begin with, but anyways, one thing that knowing it's a family matter helps me realize is this isn't a serious thing. So this isn't something that Moses would delight in either. It's not like, let's say, an enemy comes against him, it's like, ah, God got you. But it would be like a sad thing. This is your own family. It's like, why are you doing this? You know, you don't realize the destruction you're going to bring on yourself. So I would imagine this would be a sad moment as well, where it's like, holy cow, you know, like a good chunk of my family is just wiped out because they wanted to go against God. So thinking of the seriousness and even maybe some of the sadness of it is interesting.
Yeah, that's why you have in chapters 12 and chapter 12, you have Aaron and Miriam coming against his brother and sister. They challenge Moses. Now the challenge is against both Aaron and Moses from a cousin. So the family, that's the whole thing about Moses. He's getting more trouble from his family than he is from the people sometimes.
And you said they were in charge of the ark, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, isn't that like the most holiest thing that
Yeah, they have.
and the people can't even touch it, they just
Right.
instantly die.
So, if you look at their responsibilities, you go, you guys have some serious responsibilities, but you don't have,
You don't have enough.
you have enough, but you don't have the priesthood. But you cannot, when God has said, this is where things are supposed to be, and he has said, this is what the way things are, that cannot be changed, yes.
That's what I was gonna question, was it because what they were doing was they were not just challenging Moses, they were challenging God and
That's the
God
key.
would ordain.
Right. God had ordained, had put into place these leadership positions and these roles. So to who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to sanctify the Sabbath day. Now that he did command us to do. And that leaves it open for you to do numerous things to set it aside. And I remember the first time we got together, the individual who was putting this together, and we had cut and pasted the alternative blessing in our stewards. And he looked at it and he went, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, it's the alternative." And he was like, "Alternative? What's wrong with the traditional?" I said, "There's nowhere where we're commanded." I said, "I don't see any place where we're commanded to light candles. Again, I love to do it. I think it's a great thing. Nothing wrong with it. But," I said, Holy One bless me, he never commanded us to light candles. And so I said, this one says, command us to sanctify the Sabbath. That he did say to do. But that leaves it a little bit open-ended. Okay. So then the question was, and I said to this individual, I said, look, I'm not willing to tell 6 million Jews who didn't light candles that they weren't keeping the Sabbath. Just not going to do it. So they wanted to keep the Sabbath. They did keep the Sabbath. And many of them had no ability to light candles. I'm not going to tell them that they didn't keep the Sabbath just because they didn't light a candle. It's a wonderful thing to do. I love, for instance, it's in here as well. So in good Jewish tradition, we did not take the traditional out. We put the alternative in and kept both. You never get rid of the traditional. Once it's in, it's in. Remember, tradition. So, but we can add the alternative in. All right, now, here's another one. I love